author is not Reginald Williams, but it is Sharon Turner-Wingba. Her book is Grandpa's Mask: The Journey to the Warrior Queen. She got that backdrop on popping. How are you, love?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. So I am a teacher, and I've taught many different subjects, and I've always been a lover of history. And I've always looked for ways to make history more accessible to our kids, so that they can understand the rich history that is Blackness, and just have a better understanding of the world and why things are the way that they are without like me lecturing it to them. Um, my husband is Liberian, and so
Okay.
my father-in-law, he worked to bring the whole family over in the middle of the Civil War. He's like a person that like everybody really respected, and he's going on. He's passed on a while ago, and so the idea came from like I'm like, what if I had a story where like something from my husband's culture transports the kids back in time so they can learn about history. And so that's where the concept of the mask came from. I started to research because they call it Gil. That's his tribe, but like they are from a larger tribe, which is some people refer to as Dan or Don people. And that tribe, like their mask are like, if you understand the history behind it, they believe that like the spirits there are inside the mask are there to guide you, to make sure you have a safe voyage. And so that's why in the story they find this mask and it transports them. But instead of like, to another place, it transports them to another place and time to 1600s Angola, where they meet the warrior queen and have to answer some questions about like history in order to, and not like actual physical questions like, okay, here's a lesson, but like they like ask some questions about like Black people and like Black people selling other Black people. And so they're African. So my boys are African, their father's African. So they ask like, wait, so if Africans so African, should we hate ourselves? And so that question like shakes things up and makes them go back in time, and they have to understand like that it's not so black and white. It's not what you see in the history books. And it's a lot of people have blood on their hands, and then sometimes people were doing what they had to. And that's the other
Right.
thing that people don't always understand. Like some people really literally had guns to their heads. It's like either I do this or you're going to do this to my people. So it's they learn a lot about the duality of our heroes.
Okay. I'm going to let you take over and read us an excerpt from the book.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you. The travelers trudged forward through the uncleared savannah by foot, only stopping once in the early afternoon for a quick meal. Although the boys had now been gone just 24 hours, they had already changed so much. Neither Alex nor Jackson complained about their sore feet or about the blazing sun on their backs. They didn't want to prove to Finney that he was right about them being useless or a drain on the convoy. Most importantly, they didn't want to let Zinga down, their savior. As the sun began to set again, Jackson decided to keep himself entertained by counting each step he took. He looked down at his dusty sandals, counting to himself 5,002, 5,003, 5,000. His count came to an abrupt halt, and he felt his footstep on the back of a warrior's heel. His first reaction was to suck his teeth in annoyance as he glanced up, to snap at the man ahead of him for causing a pileup behind them. But as his eyes traveled up, he was met with what he knew had to be the cause of his distraction. He could see thick black smoke rising northeast of them. Judging from the expression of the warriors around him, the smoke indicated something was really wrong. Is that what we're on our way to? Jackson asked in a panic. I'm afraid so, answered Akay. Just then, the convoy's lively marching pace turned into a jog as the warriors rushed toward the smoke. After a few minutes, the boys could feel their chests begin to tighten. Although Jackson was a track star back home, distance running had never been his favorite event. Alex, Jack, and Kay did what they could to keep up with the warriors, but they began to fall to the back of the pack. As they made it out of the tall grass, the boys could see a clearing and the structure of buildings, a village, maybe a half-mile away. It was clear now where the smoke was coming from. The homes were ablaze. At this point, the warriors' dog turned to a full-out sprint with spears and axes in hand. The brave warriors rushed toward the melee ahead without even a thought about their own safety from whatever had caused this mass distraction. "Okay!" shouted Jackson. "They're leaving us!" Jackson tried his best to keep a steady stride, but he could see Alex was no longer running beside him. He turned around to find his big brother doubled over and gasping for air. McKay had also noticed Alex was already walking toward him. He reached his hand out. "Hey, little brother, it's okay. You don't have to push any harder." McKay spoke in a calm way again to the brothers. For some reason, his reassurance helped calm them, even though the convoy seemed to have moved on without them. "I told you, boys, I would keep you safe," McKay said as he helped Alex up. "There's no need for you to go racing to what's ahead. We're already too late. Plus, there's nothing you could have done to change what happened." Alex and McKay could see the destruction of the village even clearer as they grew closer. Alex began to feel his eyes stinging. His gut told him that many people had fallen in the village ahead. The three walked solemnly toward the carnage that awaited them. The gunpowder, smoke, a metallic stench of blood hung over the once vibrant dwelling like a dark storm cloud, smothering the boys and the warriors alike with the overwhelming sense of loss. As the boys made it to the gates surrounding the little town, they could feel the earth cry out to mourn the loss along with them. The rain began to pelt them from above, washing away the dust from their long journey. As the rain streamed down their faces, Alex finally felt safe enough to release the tears developing at the back of his eyes. He allowed the tears to stream, believing the rain would mask his weakness from the others. This was nothing like the battles he'd seen on Fortnite or Call of Duty. He'd never seen the aftermath of a gunfight before, especially a one-sided gunfight. All around the village, he could see the dead and the dying. Brave soldiers still clung to spears, a relic of a simpler time, as their bullet wounds seeped their life force into the ground beneath them. Jackson blinked quickly to fight off his need to cry. He, too, could not believe the reality of war. He watched Zinga's warriors search the village for survivors. He saw one soldier searching frantically through the wreckage of what used to be a home. He began calling out, "Abilio! Dejana! Abilio! Abilio!" His call turned to a desperate cry as the reality set in that those he called out for would never answer him again. He continued to pull back pieces of the collapsed wall until finally he found a woman hovering over something. Someone. The warrior collapsed beside their bodies and let out a blood-curdling howl. Jackson and Alex watched on in horror when they looked up to see Kay standing in the rain, wiping away his own tears. Both boys took this as a cue to grieve for the little family they never knew. "Why would someone do this?" Alex asked, amid sobbing. Kay answered softly, "There are evils in this world that you two know nothing about. Just plain evil." Just then Femi walked up to the saddened trio. He looked over at the warrior mourning the loss of his family and scoffed loudly. "Trust me, it's better this way." He turned his gaze toward the young warrior and shouted, "Ieno, get up! You will avenge them, but you must get up and stop your wailing. Better to know their fate than to have them carried off to God knows where." Iano did not rise. He continued to cradle the woman in his arms, unfazed by Femi's words. "Better?" questioned Jackson. "What is better about death? How could you say that?" "Death is only hard on the living. We are the ones who won't let go. What do you know of war, tough guy? Is crying the way men wage war where you're from?" Femi snapped at Jackson. "Where we are from, dying is better than being taken away across the great waters, being forgotten. What do you know of the lost ones?"